The studio lights blazed with their usual intensity that morning on The View. The air hummed with the familiar anticipation of a live broadcast, camera operators adjusting their rigs, producers whispering last-minute notes through headsets, and audience members murmuring with excitement as the theme music faded. It was another day of celebrity interviews and sharp discussions, but there was a noticeable electricity in the room that hinted at something unpredictable. Reese Witherspoon was the guest, the golden girl of Hollywood, the queen of charm and composure. When she walked onto the stage, applause thundered through the studio. Dressed in a tailored blue suit that managed to look both elegant and unpretentious, she flashed her megawatt smile and waved to the crowd. She was everything the public expected, warm, gracious, and glowing with that polished Southern charm that made her instantly likable. Whoopi Goldberg greeted her first, as always. "Reese, it's been a while since you've been here," she said with a grin. Reese settled into her seat, crossing her legs neatly. "It has, Whoopi. I missed you, ladies. Every time I come here, I know I'm going to have an honest conversation, and maybe a few laughs." The audience chuckled. Sunny Hostin smiled warmly beside her, Ana Navarro waved, and Sarah Haynes offered a friendly nod. But Joy Behar, sitting 2 seats away, didn't return the gesture. Her eyes were focused on her note cards, the kind of stillness that suggested she was sharpening her thoughts rather than preparing a friendly welcome. Sunny started things off smoothly. "Reese, you're here promoting your new movie, Founders, which you also produced. You've been at the forefront of women in Hollywood taking control of their stories. Tell us a little about why this project meant so much to you." Reese's face brightened as she began speaking. "Well, Sunny, I've always believed that stories shape culture. For so long, women's voices have been secondary, filtered through a male lens. With Founders, I wanted to highlight the unseen women who built the companies, the movements, the legacies that changed everything. It's about resilience and ambition, but also community." Her words earned an approving round of applause from the audience. She smiled almost shyly at their enthusiasm. "It's really just about showing women that leadership isn't something to apologize for," she continued. "We deserve to take up space." Whoopi nodded. "That's real. Women in power still get treated like they stole something." Reese laughed lightly. "Exactly. And when they're kind, they're called soft. When they're tough, they're called difficult. You can't win unless you decide not to play by those rules anymore." For a brief moment, it was exactly the kind of conversation The View was meant for, intelligent, inspiring, and genuine. But Joy Behar had been silent for too long. Her hand brushed the cue cards again, and she leaned slightly forward, her trademark smirk forming. "Reese," Joy said in her flat, sharp tone, "don't you think it's easy to talk about breaking barriers when you're already sitting in a mansion built by them?" The crowd gave a low, nervous laugh, unsure whether it was meant to be a joke. Reese blinked once, her smile faltering, but she quickly recovered. "I think it's easy to ignore barriers when they don't affect you," she said calmly. "That's why people in positions of privilege should use their platforms to lift others." Joy didn't flinch. "Sure, but some people think that's just performative. You know, like all these celebrities talking about empowerment while they're surrounded by assistants and stylists. How can women at home relate to that?" A flicker of tension crossed the set. Whoopi glanced at Joy, subtly shaking her head. "Come on, Joy." But Reese wasn't backing down. She met Joy's stare squarely. "I think women at home relate more to strength than to struggle. You don't have to live someone's exact life to understand what it means to fight for opportunity." Joy chuckled under her breath. "Well, that's easy for someone with a few Oscars on her shelf to say." The air thickened. The studio audience went silent, some leaning forward in anticipation. Reese shifted in her seat, but her voice didn't waver. "Those Oscars didn't come free, Joy. I've been working since I was a kid. I built a company because I was tired of waiting for men to tell me what stories mattered. If that's a crime, then I guess I'm guilty." Her tone was still polite, but her words carried weight now, clear steel under the sugar. Joy shrugged, playing it off. "No one's saying it's a crime, sweetheart. I'm just saying maybe we'd rather hear from women who don't have the luxury of saying no to a job." By the time The View's episode had ended that morning, the internet was already ablaze. Clips of Reese Witherspoon's calm but fiery exit had spread like wildfire across X, TikTok, and YouTube. Headlines screamed, "Reese walks out! How Behar's comment backfires! Southern charm meets New York sass!" Within an hour, Thomas Team Reese was trending, and the network's social media team was in crisis mode. Inside the studio, the atmosphere was tense. The once buzzing set now felt heavy, awkward. A space that had hosted hundreds of heated debates, but rarely one that spilled so openly into raw confrontation. Producers huddled in corners, whispering in clipped tones, and Joy Behar sat in her dressing room scrolling through her phone with pursed lips. The reaction online was not kind. Tweets, comments, and even celebrity posts were calling her out for being dismissive and patronizing. "Joy, don't read those," said a frazzled assistant, trying to pry the phone from her hand. "I've been doing this for 26 years, Joy snapped, not looking up. "I can handle a few angry tweets." "Those aren't a few," the assistant muttered. Joy sighed and set the phone down. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirror, the woman who prided herself on never backing down, on saying what others wouldn't. Yet today she wasn't entirely sure she'd come off as fearless. There was a line between challenging and condescending, and for the first time in a long time, Joy suspected she'd crossed it. Meanwhile, in a sleek SUV across town, Reese Witherspoon sat quietly, phone in hand, watching the clips circulate. The comments were overwhelming. Reese handled that like a queen. Joy really came for her, and lost. That's how you shut down arrogance with grace. Reese wasn't smiling. "This isn't what I wanted," she murmured, scrolling through the flood of praise. Her publicist, seated beside her, gave a light laugh. "Reese, this is PR gold. Everyone's on your side. You look like the adult in the room. The clip has over 1 million views already." Reese shook her head. "It's not gold. It's noise. I don't like seeing women tear each other apart. That's exactly what I said I didn't want." Her publicist hesitated. "You didn't tear anyone apart. You stood your ground." But Reese wasn't convinced. She looked out the tinted window at the blur of New York streets. The city always had a way of humbling her. All the power and glamour in the world couldn't stop a moment from spiraling. She was proud she'd stood up for herself, but she wasn't proud of the spectacle it had become. Later that afternoon, she retreated to her hotel suite, slipping off her shoes and settling by the window. Her phone rang again, an unknown number. Normally she wouldn't answer, but something made her pick it up. "Reese? It's Joy." There was a pause. Reese's expression softened, but she said nothing at first. "I just wanted to say," Joy continued, her voice lower, slower than usual, "that I didn't mean to talk down to you. I was trying to get a reaction, not start a war. I've always respected what you've done for women in this industry." Reese exhaled, her tone steady. "Thank you for saying that. I get it. You have a show to run and conflict drives conversation, but sometimes it costs more than people realize." "I know," Joy admitted. "Believe me, I know. The internet's eating me alive right now." Reese chuckled softly. "Well, the internet eats everyone eventually. It's what it does." That broke the tension. Both women laughed lightly, the kind of laugh that comes not from amusement, but from exhaustion. Joy's voice grew more reflective. "You know, you reminded me why people like you so much. You didn't lose your temper. You didn't get snarky. You just held your ground. I could learn a thing or two from that." Reese smiled faintly. "And I could probably be less defensive sometimes. We're both passionate, Joy. That's not a bad thing. It just hit the wrong note this, Reese. Even so, the controversy had done something deeper. It had forced both women, in their own ways, to reflect on what happens when opinions overpower empathy. The next morning on The View, Joy walked onto the set with a slightly more subdued air. The opening chatter was light, as always, but she didn't dance around the elephant in the room for long. "Before we dive into today's topics," she said, facing the camera, "I want to take a minute to address what happened yesterday with Reese Witherspoon." The studio quieted. "I've been in this business a long time," Joy continued. I say what I think, sometimes too bluntly, but I never mean to make someone feel small. Reese is someone I've admired for years, and while I stand by asking hard questions, I could have asked them with more grace. The audience applauded softly, some nodding in approval. Whoopi smiled from the moderator's seat. That's called being a grown-up, Joy. Don't let it scare you. The audience laughed, easing the tension. Joy grinned back. Oh, it terrifies me, but I'll survive.